Good afternoon and welcome to an episode of Mindfulness, Sexuality, and Relationships. I'm your host, Anita DeFrancesco, founder of Tantra Wisdom. I'm a modern sex and relationship coach. Today my topic is self-love and how to have the relationship to your own feelings. Well, firstly, I hear a lot of people saying that they really do love themselves and how could they not love themselves? But I think that a lot of people have a misunderstanding of really what loving yourself is. First, let me say that you can have the healthy love and sex life that you desire. It is very possible. But in order to get to that, you need to understand what love is, and then you need to love yourself, and then you need to have a relationship with yourself. So in this episode, we're talking about the relationship to your feelings, what is self-love, and how do you know you have it, how do you attain it, and how do you sustain it. So let's go on with what is it? It's one of the most profound experiences anyone can have. Yes, that's right. It begins with life. So we're born from innocence and life, but how do we keep this? We're faced with so much vulnerability and so much hate and oppression. How do we keep the self-love? We're filled with hate. So let's see about learning how to open up this part of yourself that really is there. It's the most creative part of your body. There's no greater love than self-love. It's more profound than money. I know that may sound a little bit kind of weird, but it is deeper than money. It is the riches of who you are. And if you become the person of self-love, you may find yourself tackling all the things in your life that will make you have the riches and desires that you want. So you either have it or you don't. But the good thing about self-love is that you can learn how to love yourself. Well, perhaps you came from a family where you were plagued with, emotional mishaps. Maybe your parents weren't there for you, or maybe no one loved you, or no one demonstrated love to you. And so you either stop loving yourself or you just haven't learned how to love yourself. Or maybe you were in a relationship and you were abandoned from the relationship and this left you feeling unloved. Or maybe you just didn't have the good role models. So if there was no one loving you, then the common sense thing to do is learn to love yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, then who will? But that's a good question. If you do love yourself, then you may attract someone that will love you and that you may be able to love as deeply. So with that in mind, we need preparation so that you learn how to feel for your own self. Self-love comes from, what does it come from? Real pain, real sorrow, real life experiences that throw us back and help us transform. The cycle of change informs the body that love is there. So pay attention to these things and experiences that are awakenings that will help you shift and transform into the autonomous self of love that you can be. Let me tell you about an experience, how I learned to self-love myself and build a relationship with myself. When I was a child, I was 9 years old, I had rheumatic fever, which is rheumatic heart disease, and I was in a hospital for 6 months. And at that time in the 1960s, I was the only white person amongst African American children. And at that time, of course, we really didn't have the social connection that we have today. But my heart was very sick. I was dying, and lots of children were dying. I witnessed lots of children dying every day. So I would lay there in my bed, and these kids and I, we would fight because of the differences in our race. And since I was the only Caucasian person at the time amongst a wing of about 15 other patients that were all African American, it was very, very challenging. But yet, I didn't look at that. I had to open my heart, and I needed the love from the people around me to be able to survive. Because after witnessing lots of people dying every day, And small children, like myself, I was 9, being brought out in body bags. And somehow an awakening came, and I reached out to these people around me, and we learned to love each other. We learned to have fun. We learned to play together. When we got out of the hospital, we went to each other's homes for dinner. And it was one of the most non-prejudice experiences that I had growing up. And up until this day, it was one of the most profound awakenings of my entire life, actually, because I had to have a relationship with myself. My parents couldn't come to see me because the hospital was too far for them to visit, and I was pretty much alone. So there were only 2 things for me to do, was build a relationship to myself, and once my heart opened, my hospital mates and I became soulmates, so to speak. So you can learn to have a relationship with yourself. Like I said, it comes from the experiences of your life. So how do you know you love yourself? When you understand what love is, then you can love yourself. If there's a lot of greed and hate around you, then I'm going to say where selfishness lives, where destruction of the self develops. Where selfishness lives is where destruction of the self develops. So you must remove yourself and surround yourself with loving, supportive people that are not always talking about their negative lives and the hate that they have and the judgments they have toward people. These are the things that will bring the love of the self down, and almost like a low self-esteem. So when you feel hate and anger and depression and pain, it's time to transform into loving the self. And this happens when you find those positive people to surround yourself with. Another way to love yourself is to honor yourself, honor the body. Take out the me time, pampering yourself, connecting to your heart by being around seniors and children, perhaps. Being around children is very enlightening and very empowering to be around seniors. And at the same time, very empathetic to see the babiness of a young child and the babiness of a senior. Another way to honor yourself is to put yourself first, but not from the ego, but by recognizing your talents so that your self-esteem can deserve love. So once you start to recognize and acknowledge your talents, then you can build that relationship to your feelings and understand that and acknowledge your own feelings so that your self-esteem can grow, and understanding that you deserve to be loved. You build confidence by surrounding yourself, again, with people that support you. Whatever it is that you're doing in your life. Maybe you're taking a new class. Maybe you're trying out a new city to live in. Or maybe you want to move away from your parents. Or maybe you have a new boyfriend or girlfriend. And stay away from the people that put a negative spin on your development. You want to surround yourself with people that support whatever it is that you're doing, even if it isn't the right thing. You want the support, and that's what helps you to have a relationship to yourself. That's what helps you grow, and that is what develops love, self-love. Now again, to have a healthy relationship with the opposite sex, of course, or with a romantic partner, you must love yourself first, because in order to love someone else, you have to love yourself first. And once you develop this relationship to your feelings, you can then share that. You become your own person that is love. You become your own sexual being. You become your own orgasm. You become this, and this is who you are, and this is what you share with another person. Another way to self-love yourself is to forgive others that hurt you, not for them, but for you. So some people I hear saying, it's hard to forgive someone. that did them wrong, or a parent that wasn't there for them, or a parent that abused them. It's hard to forgive them. But I don't want you to forgive them. I want you to forgive them. I want you to forgive not for them, but for you. I know that sounds a little bit, how do you do that? Just forgive for you, not for them. And this is how you build the relationship to your own feelings. If you continually hold on to the pain of hating and not forgiving and the grudges, your sexual intimate life can become a numb and armored experience. Forgiveness will give you the ability to interact with resistance. Forgiveness is the art of the heart. With hate in the body, it becomes challenging to love yourself. It becomes challenging to love someone else. Sexual opening in the body is the pleasure. Pleasure is the love. So if you want to have pleasurable sex, pleasurable love life, romantic life, you must come into love. And that's the emotion. Pleasure is the emotion of love. So what I want you to do is make a list of all that you want to forgive for you, not for them. And that will make it so much more, that will make so much more sense to your emotions. So let's just for a moment here take a breath and come back into your feelings and stay connected to the heart here for a moment. I wanted to talk to you about surrendering your ego to a higher reality. So how do you do this? You have to dig yourself out of the ego. It's like undoing layers and layers and layers and finding the truth. This is the key to transformation, finding that truth, accepting the self and the love you were given. Now, how many of us don't accept the self and the life we were given? We always want something better. The grass is always greener. But when you accept the life that you were given and whatever your talents and gifts were, and you accept that, whatever it is, this is love of the self. But if you can't accept yourself, because you may not be this, that, or the other that you want to be, you are a wannabe of something that you're not, then self-love is going to be more challenging and your relationships will be more challenging. But when you love yourself and you start to accept, you start to feel a closeness to your masculine and feminine energies. And this helps you to understand your primal animal, because you come back to that source soul being. Think about animals accepting of their nature and their sexuality, which makes them one with the universe. We're always in constant love with the self, with the yin and yang complementing each other. So animals accept their nature. So if you can relate to an animal, which I know a lot of us do, we have pets, dogs, cats, and just observe the primalness and the acceptance that they live in. This makes them collective with the universe. So again, coming back to that yin and yang. But if we don't accept ourselves, the yin and yang may not show up. And the complementing of that powerful energies within can be dormant. And this is the basis of you seeking and the path of true love. Connecting with the inner child is the next area here that I want to talk about. Now, a lot of us have these traumas from the past, and it's hard to let go and let love in because the traumas are so painful. Maybe they were sexual traumas, maybe they were bullying, maybe you were bullied as a child. And it's baggage. And there's a time and a place for emotional cleansing where you want to learn how to relieve and release the pent-up anger that lives in your cells, creating the armor, shutting down the heart and your sexual being. Now remember, the sexual being is the whole being, is the whole body. So this is an area to assess about yourself. What are the things that come up for you that bother you from your past. And then another part of this whole self-love relationship to your feelings, harnessing aloneness. When we spend time alone, the relationship to the self can only grow stronger. So part of loving yourself and building that relationship to your own feelings is spending time alone and talking to yourself, being with yourself, enjoying your own company. Also, sexually speaking, masturbation is a way of self-love in the sexual sense, but not always. What I want you to do is just spend time alone with yourself and know that aloneness is pureness, aloneness is power, aloneness is the heart. And this is where it begins, in the heart. The aloneness brings out the spirit, and you will develop a spiritual presence with the self. So that's one good thing about aloneness. When you experience being in the alone and reaching out, the most successful form of integration you can have, the most successful form of integration that any human being can have is with a self. There is no stronger integration and relationship than the one to the relationship of your own feelings. Loneliness is a tool we use toward understanding the self more intimately, to surrender the fear and hostility. We're going to take a break at this time, and I will be right back. Thank you for tuning in to an episode of Mindfulness, Sexuality, and Relationships, and I've been your host, Anita DeFrancesco, modern sex and relationship coach.